Hi, I'm Rob, and you're joining me for the third in a series of 5 daily devotions focused on our core values as a church. Feel free to catch up on the previous 2 days and get a greater sense of how God has been guiding us and what that means for us as we step into a brand new chapter that God has for us in 2022 and beyond. Today, we're going to be considering this particular core value: care for our local community and our world. It's a really sad reality that when left to their own devices, the natural inclination of churches over time is to become insular-minded and self-centered, forgetting our mission in favor of our traditions and preferences. Over the last 5 years, we've felt God continually challenging us to remember that we exist not for our own benefit, but for the sake of those around us who God loves and sent His Son to die for. As we step into this new chapter of our history together as a church, we must remember what God has been saying to us, so that our future isn't simply a repeat of mistakes that we may have made in the past. We don't have time to squabble over our personal preferences when we are called to meet the needs of others in our community and world. All around us, people are in need, whether that's physical, emotional, or spiritual need. How could we ever claim to be worshipping God if we fail to take care of others and make their needs a priority? God made needy people His priority from the very beginning. He clothed Adam and Eve when they were naked and ashamed. He formed the nation of Israel from the descendants of a foreigner named Abram, born in Ur of the Chaldeans, where they'd never even heard of the God of the Hebrew people. He rescued slaves from oppression in Egypt, and He gave them the opportunity to call a new land their home. As they were approaching the Promised Land, Moses, the leader of the Hebrew people, reminded them of this care, and he challenged them to model this kindness and compassion as they followed God into the future that He had for them. He said this in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verses 17 to 19. "For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow. He loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. You are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt." Every day the news is filled with stories of people in crisis, here in the UK and overseas. And whilst politicians continue to argue about, the issues surrounding immigration and the economy, refugees, channel migrants, poverty and homelessness, social welfare and social services, my question is, where will our voice be as a church? Where will our hands be serving those in need? Will our hearts break for the brokenhearted, or our wallets empty for the poor? Wherever God leads us as a church, there are bound to be widows and orphans, the poor and the displaced. Will we remember that God has commanded His people since the very beginning to follow His lead and care for our community and world? What will you do personally for those God loves and has called you to serve? Will you sign a petition, volunteer to serve food, give generously, come alongside and comfort hurting people, welcome the outcasts in our community, stand up for human rights, pray for those in need, maybe halfway across the world even? Will you commit to care for our community and our world and then fulfill that commitment? And will you help us as a church to recognize the needs of others above our own preferences? As you reflect on that, you can find a link below in the description to a song that I've chosen to help inspire us to embrace this huge challenge. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.